Good evening, everyone. We are the Group 2 and we are reporting Chapter 8, Authentic Assessment. Before we start for the authors, let me explain first what is authentic assessment. Authentic assessment is a type of evaluation that measures a student's ability to apply knowledge and skills in real-world situations. For our first perspective, the Golikers, Bastians, and Kirchners, an assessment requiring students to use the same competencies. These perspectives emphasize that authentic assessment should require students to use the same competencies, knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed in their future professional lives. The focus is on the direct transferability of skills learned in the classroom to the workplace or real-world scenarios or the situation. Next is Kyra and Yambo argue that authentic assessment should resemble meaningful performances. Their perfect perspectives build that authentic assessment should resemble meaningful performance in real-world context and involve real-life tasks with multiple solutions. The emphasis is on the realistic application of knowledge and the development of problem-solving skills. Next, the third author is Mueller, addressing Mueller perspective and emphasizes that education should prepare graduates for real world challenges. Therefore, assessment should mirror real world tasks. The rationale is that if a graduate is proficient in performing tasks similar to these encountered after graduation, their education has been effective. The next author is Pokaila. Pokaila argues addressing weaknesses in traditional assessment. Pokaila points out a shortcoming in traditional assessment methods. They often fail to adequately evaluate reflective and social knowing. These are crucial skills that are often overlooked in traditional exams and quizzes. Authentic assessment, Pokaila suggests that can better address this gap. This table differences between test-based assessment and authentic assessment. These tables contrast test-based assessment with authentic assessment, highlighting key differences in their approach to learning and evaluation. For the first one, the test-based assessment or the testing culture, this approach emphasizes rote learning and memorization, typically using standardized tests with discontextualized tasks. It focuses on assessing low-level cognitive skills, often employing multiple choices formats for summative evaluation. Authentic assessment, in contrast with the traditional or the test-based or yung testing culture, authentic assessment places responsibility for learning on the students. It employs interpretative performance-based and collaborative method using contextualized tasks to assist higher order cognitive skills. Assessment is multifaceted, incorporating both formative or yung ongoing feedback and summative for final evaluation. Next, why use authentic assessment? Yung highlighting its effectiveness in providing educators with clear evidence on learning outcomes achievements. It emphasizes several case strength. So number one is yung clear alignment, which alignment in authentic assessment demonstrate the strong alignment between learning outcomes, learning activities, and assessment tasks. Next is both process and the product. It values both the process, how the student approach the task, and the final product or the outcome. Next is there is not usually a single solution because in authentic assessment, we have multiple solutions that acknowledge that diverse approach can lead to successful outcomes. Next is assessment method or yung assessment maybe the teacher or industry expert assist. It is versatile, allowing for teachers or expert assessment but also lending itself well to self and peer assessment. This empowers students to take ownership of their learning. Next, the last one is the criteria reference marking. This approach used as rubrics or set of criteria to evaluate students' work, focusing on the achievement of specific learning objectives rather than comparing students to each other. Then we have an important benefits of using authentic assessment is that it leads itself well to students' collaboration to the operational knowledge and skills needed for industry are developed. So meron tayong dito yung mga 21st century competencies are acquired. So these are the following. Critical thinking, which analyze information objectively and forming reasons judgment. Next is the complex problem solving. This is for tackling multifaceted problem requiring creative and strategic thinking. The third one is the collaboration, which is working effectively with others to achieve shared goals. Next is lifelong learning. This develop a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation. Next is the effective communication, where clearly and persuasively conveying ideas and information. Next is the digital literacy. Digital literacy competently using technology for learning and communication. Next is the responsible citizen. Yun yung understanding and fulfilling civic responsibility. And the last one is self-directed learning, taking initiative and managing one's learning process.
Now let's proceed to why is authentic assessment is important. So authentic assessment is important because it reflects real-world applications. So authentic assessment mimic real-life scenarios, making learning more relevant and applicable. Next is it develops critical thinking and problem solving. So students are challenged to think critically and solve complex problems, preparing them for real-world challenges. So authentic assessment also important because it encourages deeper learning, which is authentic assessment promote deeper understanding and retentions of material rather than just memorization. No? And then it prepares students for future career by simulating real-world tasks and scenarios. So authentic assessment daw po, it helps students develop skills and competences required in their future career. And then it is provide meaningful feedback. No? Authentic assessment offer valuable insights into students' strengths and weaknesses, enabling targeted feedback and improvement. So in summarization, why is authentic assessment is important because it helps students develop practical skills, think critically, and apply knowledge in a meaningful ways, better preparing them for success in their personal and professional lives. There are various pressures and opportunities that have led to current strong interest in designing authentic curriculum, pedagogies, and learning and assessment in higher education. The first one is increasing concern amongst educators and students about the lack of alignment between stated curriculum objectives, emphasizing the development of professional capacities and assessment tasks lacking relevance to those purported learning outcome. So, lack of alignment between curriculum objectives and assessment tasks, educators and students are concerned that the learning objectives outlined in the curriculum don't match the assessment method used. The curriculum aims to develop professional skills, but the assessment don't reflect this. This mismatch can lead to students not being adequately prepared for real-world challenges. The second one is educational technologies enabling experiential learning and teaching in cost-effective ways in professional and vocational field study. So, educational technologies for experiential learning, new technologies are making it possible to offer hands-on experiential learning experience in a cost-effective way. So, this is particularly useful in fields like healthcare, engineering, or vocational training. So, where students need practical skills. So, this technology can simulate real-world scenarios, making learning more engaging and effective. For the third one, demands of external stakeholders, example industry and the professions. So, for universities to offer more relevant courses and enhance graduate employability, including the development of so-called generic or transferable practical skills. So, in demands for relevant courses and graduates' employability, employers and industry professionals are pushing universities to offer courses that are more relevant to the job market. They want graduates who not only have theoretical knowledge but also practical, transferable skills that can be applied in the workplace. So universities are responding by focusing on developing these skills in their students. Next, educators search for ways of making their courses more engaging to better meet the needs, preferences, and circumstances of new generations of learning with more educational and life choices and greater demands for their studies to be applied and useful. So making courses for engaging for new generations of learners have different expectations and preferences. They want their education to be relevant, practical, and useful. Educators are looking for ways to make their courses more engaging and applicable to real life situations so students can see the value in what they are learning. Then, the need for teaching and learning experiences to develop knowledge and skills on the one hand, and supportive attitudes and values on the other to graduate informed, well-rounded and productive workers and citizens. So developing knowledge and skills, attitudes and values, education should not only focus on teaching knowledge and skills but also on developing supportive attitudes and values, okay? And then the goal is to produce well-rounded graduates who are not only knowledgeable but also equipped the right mindset to be productive workers and citizens. And then we have educators need to teach their courses more cost effectively by using appropriately self and peer assessment strategies to share judgment making on the quality of student work amongst key parties and the educational process. So cost-effective teaching using self and peer assessment, of course, educators are looking for ways to teach more efficiently without compromising quality. One approach is to use self-assessment and peer assessment strategies. This involves students evaluating their own work or the work of their peers, which can help share the responsibility of assessment and make the process more cost-effective. And for the last one, ever-increasing and pressing bodies of knowledge on the ways adults learn and ways in which their learning can be best enabled in well-designed contemporary teaching and learning environments in higher education. So understanding how adults learn, there's a growing body of research on how adults learn best. Educators need to stay up to date with these findings to create effective learning environments. This includes understanding the best ways to design courses, teach and assess adult learning in higher educations, ensuring that teaching methods are evidence-based and effective. Now let's proceed to when to use authentic assessment. Authentic assessment is suitable for all levels of a program, but the complexity of the task should build with the level of the course and the experience of the students. So hindi dyan mawawala sa real-world application. When you want students to apply what they learned to the real-world scenarios or problem, diba? Siyempre, a-apply mo yan doon. Complex tasks. When assessing complex skills or tasks that require critical thinking, problem solving, or creativity. Next, professional or vocational training in fields like healthcare, engineering, or business, where students need to develop practical skills and apply theoretical knowledge. Siyempre, a-apply mo dun si authentic assessment. Magagamit mo yun dun. And then, project-based learning. When students work on a project that require them to integrate multiple skills and knowledge areas. And then, developing transferable skills. When you want to assess skills that are transferable across different contexts, such as communication, teamwork, or time management. Authentic assessment can be adapted to various levels of a program with increasingly complexity as students progress, considering students' experience factors like first one is knowledge and skills, assessing students' mastery of subject matter and ability to apply skills. And then we have the ability to collaborate, of course, evaluating students' capacity to work effectively with others, communicate, and build on each other's strengths. And then the capacity of self-regulation and reflections, assessing students' ability to self-assess, reflect on their learning, and take ownership of their progress. So by taking these factors into account, educators can design authentic assessment that challenge students appropriately, foster deeper learning and skill development, prepare students for real-world applications. So this approach helps ensures that assessments are relevant, engaging, and effective in measuring student learning outcomes.
Characteristics of authentic assessment. Here are the authentic tasks. Number 1 are perceived by students as being authentic. So in here, it says na dapat nararamdaman ng students na totoo or makabuluhan yung task, but it is subjective kaya pwedeng magkaiba ang perception ng students and teachers when it comes on being authentic. Number 2 are similar to the real work done in professional context and highlight situational and contextual knowledge. Dito naman sinasabi na yung task is dapat kahalintulad ng totoong ginagawa sa trabaho or in real life. For example na lang tayo, since we are eduk students, we are doing a demo teaching, so na-experience natin yung nagtuturo na talaga tayo. In number 3, are performance-based and requires students to demonstrate mastery of professional practices. It means hindi lang basta pen and paper, hindi lang basta test and exam, but also kailangan na ipapakita ng students by their performance na kaya nilang gawin in actual yung task. The more na parang tunay na trabaho, the more na mas authentic. Number 4, reflect clear alignment between desired learning outcomes, curriculum content, and future career-based knowledge. Simple as dapat naka-align sa subject goals, topics, at sa future jobs or career ng students yung knowledge or tasks. Number 5, integrate required workplace skills with university academic requirements. Dito, pinagsasama or pinagko-combine yung skills na kailangan sa trabaho and yung natutunan sa pag-aaral. Since naulit lang yung number 6 to 13, let's move to number 14. Please move to number 14. In number 14, emphasize assessment for learning purposes rather than just for grading and incorporate social, cognitive, and reflective process of learning. So with this one, yung assessment is hindi lang para sa grades. Dapat it has a purpose to learn, including the reflection of the students, their thinking, and their learning process. In number 15, are fair and free from bias so they do not advantage or disadvantage any groups of students. Dapat pantay-pantay ang treatment with every student. Number 16 are motivating, enjoyable, sustain interest, and are challenging but achievable. So here, dapat daw ang task ay dapat nakaka-enjoy and also nakaka-motivate, interesting, and challenging but kayang ma-achieve or magawa ng students. Next slide. Number 17 are based on criteria that have been developed with or negotiated with students. So it should have a clear criteria. Dapat alam ng students yung goal ng task. Dapat alam nila yung magiging outcome at kung para saan ba to. Number 18 are focused in ways that ensure there is neither or too little nor too much assessment. Yung assessment ay dapat sakto lang, hindi labis at hindi kulang. Enough lang para masukat ang learning ng students. Number 19, achieve an appropriate balance between tasks that are too complex and too simple. Dito naman, dapat hindi sobrang dali, hindi rin sobrang hirap, balanse lang at dapat takma sa kakayanan ng learners. Number 20, often incorporate self-peer and client assessment in conjunction with academic teacher assessment. Hindi lang si teacher ang nag-assess, kasama rin minsan ang sarili at kaklase. Next slide. Number 21, ensure that students have opportunities to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Dapat madedevelop ng students yung kanilang critical thinking and problem-solving skills na magagamit din nila in real world or in their future careers. Number 22, provide clear evidence that students have achieved the desired learning outcomes. Clear evidence of learning, dapat may malinaw na evidence of their output na natutunan talaga ng students yung goals ng lesson. Number 23, Require timely feedback relating to criteria that students can act upon. Kailangan may feedback agad na malinaw para malaman kaagad ng students kung ano ang dapat i-improve. So overall, authentic task should be purposeful, hindi lang ito para magka-grades or para makapasa, kundi way din ito para ma-ready yung students in real world and maging competent in their future work. It should be realistic, engaging, fair, and reflective of actual professional practices.
Designing authentic assessment, a broadening of assessment tasks can also improve validity and reliability of assessment. Regime as a measure of student learning. Sabi rito is kailangan magbigay tayo ng different kind of test para lalong mapakita if natuto ba talaga yung mga estudyante. It can also help to ensure fair and equitable assessment. It also helps to make the test fair for everyone. Next po, framework for designing authentic assessment. In more recent work, Ulikers, Bastians, and Kirchner in 2004, pages 70 to 77, suggested a five-dimensional framework for designing authentic assessment with pertinent questions to consider in relation to each dimension. Their framework includes number 1, the task has to be one that involves the student in carrying out activities that reflect what is done in professional practice. It's answer the questions, what do you have to do? Sabi rito is, for example, tayo mga estudyante, sabi ni Ma'am Soriano kanina, dapat is, tayong eduk student is like nagde-demo. Tapos yung mga professional students is, kagaya natin is nagtuturo. Ayan yung example ng number 1, the task. A physical context. Real places of work are different from institutional learning environments. So the assessment should mirror the way knowledge, skills, and attitudes are used in real context. It answers the question, where do you have to do it? Ito naman sa number 2 is, for example, imagine you are learning to ride a bike. Hindi mo lang ito matutunan sa pagbabasa ng libro sa classroom, is matutunan mo to pag ikaw mismo nag-try na sumakay sa bike at kung paano mo to ibabalance. It's answer the question, where do you have to do it? Saan mo to kailangan gawin? So, kailangan mo siyang gawin para matutunan. Number 3, a social context. An authentic assessment task should involve social processes that are equivalent to those in real-life situations. It answers the question, with whom do you have to do it? For example, naglalaro ka ng games like COD, ML. Ilalaro mo to minsan mag-isa. Minsan naman kasama mo yung friends mo. Number 4, the assessment result or form has to involve a product or performance, demonstration of competencies, array of tasks, and oral and or written presentation to others what has to come out of it. What is the result of your efforts? It's, for example, kakaroon ka lang ng isang bagay, if like kunwari may gagawin ka, tsaka ka pa lang magkakaroon ng result. Kunwari yung nag-exam ka. So yung result ng exam, yun yung assessment result or form. It answer what is the result of your effort. Number 5, criteria and standards. How does what you have done to be evaluated or judged? Ito yung lagi sinasabi sa atin na tuwing nagde-demo tayo, merong criteria kung paano natin evaluate yung isang nagde-demo or tayo mismo. Paano natin malalaman kung anong mga need natin gawin, standards ng pag-grades nila.
So here are the tips on how you design and execute authentic assessments. So our first one is to make sure na ang authentic assessment mo ay there are some cases where hindi dapat authentic talaga or kailangan lang iba yung approach mo when it comes to providing this assessment to students. minsan meron kang lessons na kung saan ay baka itong assessment na to bagay lang siya traditionally or bagay siya with the use of technology. Ganun po ang definition po for the first bullet. Now, for the second bullet, if you are not able to redesign the whole assessment approach, try to adjust lang yung authentic assessment mo sa isang feature lang ng assessment. Ganun lang siya. The third one is, if you are able to create an authentic assessment, it is also beneficial once na makita mo din yung authentic assessment mo to your colleagues or to your co-teachers. Of course, hindi lang tayo yung nagpo-provide ng assessment sa students. You may want to also check out other works by your colleagues. Makikita mo naman sa mga estudyante mo na effective ang gantong assessment na, okay. Okay to kasi in-execute to ng maayos ni ma'am or kaya in-execute to ni teacher ng maayos. Makikita din to sa mga katrabaho mong guru din. The next bullet is, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Of course, there are already existing authentic assessments. If you are trying to integrate geometry sa construction, so syempre hindi naman pwede basta-basta na gagawa ka talaga ng bahay, di ba? So there are also other approaches like pwede ka gumawa ng diagram or kaya pwede ka gumawa ng paper mache, yung maliit lang na model scales ng mga models or kaya scales. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on creating or designing an authentic assessment. Now, as mentioned previously by Soriano in characteristics of a formative assessment, you'll have to make sure na yung authentic assessment mo ay reliable at fair and also engaging para sa mga estudyante mo. As stated on the next bullet, the key is to devise a task that immerses in a realistic project. Make sure that yung authentic assessment mo is interactive and fun para sa mga students mo. So, to ensure that some students are clear about both the processes and outcomes expected of them in authentic assessment. So, syempre, additionally, this is also beneficial for students if and only if they know what they are doing in that assessment. You'll have to make clear instructions, clear and concise instructions, and make sure that na dapat with this kind of instructions may execute ng student at mapaperceive nila na itong assessment na to ay interactive at fair para sa mga other students ko. And then, you'll have to explore possibilities offered by simulation technology. Of course, since napapanahon ngayon ang mga programs, technologies that are already existing, not just on classrooms, but also on other resources such as the internet, you may use that as well. If you are trying to illustrate a certain diagram or kaya plain figure sa isang geometry, hindi ka lang basta-basta pwede mag-rely sa drawings. Pwede mo rin siya ma-search sa internet na kung saan may mga interactive diagrams doon na pwede mong galaw-galawin, ganyan. Mga physics lab, mga ganyan. And then for the next slide, we have not just authentic assessments, but also formative assessments. Now, as stated by Black and William back in 1998, they acknowledge that there is a body of firm evidence that formative assessment is an essential component of classroom work. So, sa formative assessment, meron din siyang characteristics. Sa pagkakaroon ng isang formative assessments, pwede siyang on the fly na kung saan mabilisan lang or during the abstraction process or kaya sa lesson plan mo, nasa abstraction part ka. During the time na nagtuturo ka, plan for interaction na kung saan prior to your abstraction, pwede ka na agad mag-provide ng follow-up questions or opening questions para dun sa lesson mo. And then curriculum embedded na kung saan ito talaga ay yung system of questions na provided doon sa iyong lesson plan or sa curriculum as provided by Heritage back in 2007. Next po. Next report.
Formative
ma'am.
assessment, ito naman po is, formative assessment is an activity or task that helps teacher and student check learning progress during a course, not just at the end. Tinutulungan ng estudyante na maintindihan ng kung ano yung mga dapat may magagawin at kung ano pa ang kailangan niyang i-improve. Halimbawa, in online environment, technology tools na ginagamit, katulad itong ginagawa natin, Zoom, ito ay halimbawa ng discussion forum, na kung saan pwedeng mag-aral ang estudyante, magturo yung teacher, para magkaroon sila ng dialogue and communication. Whether rin itong blog or social media na are used to make this process interactive and ongoing. Ano nga ba yung dialogues and communication? Dialogue and communication, that means student and teacher talk to each other to give and receive feedback. Yan. Para maintindihan ng estudyante at maklarify kung ano pa yung dapat niyang matutunan at to give student advice and how to improve, make student more active in their own learning. Example nito is, halimbawa gumawa sila ng essay. Pagkatapos nilang gumawa ng essay, ipapasa nila ito sa online platform. Halimbawa is Google Form. Katulad yan, yung ginagawa natin. Tapos, magko-comment yung teacher or yung mga kapwa niya estudyante para magkaroon to ng self-assessment. Kailangan yung estudyante basahin niya yung mga comment sa kanya and comment ng teacher para ma-improve niya kung ano yung dapat niyang i-improve dun sa essay niyang pinasa. And pangalawa, what is immediacy and contingency? Ito yung online learning na nasabi ko nga kanina. Ang example nito is Kahoot, Quizzes, Google Form, Socrative, Mentimeter. Ito yung mga online platform or mobile apps na ginagamit kung saan pwedeng mag-aral or magpasa ng mga learning materials. Halimbawa, quizzes or gumawa kayo ng Google Form para magsagot. Doon pwedeng ipasa yung mga ginawa ng mga estudyante at doon din i-check ni teacher para makita kung ano yung mga pwede pang baguhin para ma-improve yung estudyante sa kanyang pag-aaral gamit ang online communication. Authenticity assessment means give student tasks and realistic and similar that they would face in their real world. Example po niyan is, yun nga po, kailangan yung, example po nun is yung estudyante na katulad nga na nabanggit kanina, hindi niya kailangan gawin yung paggawa ng bahay, kailangan bahay agad. Kailangan niyang gumawa na muna ng sample na katulad or realistic similar do sa kanyang gagawing bahay. Self-evaluative, ito naman po yung this idea is about helping students become more responsible for their own learning instead of only relying on teacher to tell them what is wrong or right. Kailangan i-check ni student kung yung mga comment ng estudyante, yung kanyang kapwa estudyante doon sa kanyang ginawa, hindi lang doon sa sinabi ng teacher, para mas ma-improve niya yung essay or ginawa niya na ipinasa niya sa sample sa Google Form. At kailangan niyang gawa ng reflection yung sarili niya base dun sa mga comment ng kanyang kapwa estudyante at comment din ng teacher niya para makakaroon doon ng self-evaluative para makita niya mismo sa sarili niya na ito pala yung sample. Nag-comment yung kaklase niya na kulang yung niya or sobra. Huwag dapat siyang ma-offend. Kailangan niyang i-accept kung ano yung mga comment para magkaroon siya ng self-improvement. authentic assessment at a program level. We talk about assessment of program level. We mean look at student learning process across the entire degree, diploma, or training program, just not individual cross program oversight. It means student create applied practice, not just ito naman po yung kailangan sa program oversight. It makes sure the student get repeated practice. Kailangan niya mag-practice, hindi kailangan niya ng isang beses lang. Kailangan yung pag-practice ng student para mas lalo niya maintindihan yung kanyang ginagawa is una, easy, kasunod, mahirap, hanggang pahirap ng pahirap. Ang purpose po nun is para hindi lang matutunan ng estudyante yung kanyang ginagawa, kundi magkaroon siya ng idea and knowledge, hindi lang knowledge, pati skills, step by step, from basic to advanced. And pag nangyari po yun is mas matututunan ng estudyante, hindi lang na tumatak na sa isip niya, hindi lang niya nalaman, na memorize niya na pa yung ginawa niya step by step.
Now let's proceed to a more formative, less summative approach to assessment. So it is a program level approach to assessment, allows for the use of more formative and less summative assessment. So in this, it aims to utilize that more formative assessment than less summative. Since formative assessment is focuses on ongoing feedback and improvement during the learning process, while the summative approach or the summative assessment, it evaluates learning at the end of a unit, of course, often for example na lang for formative assessment, yung open questioning, for habang nagdi-discuss si teacher, ganyan. It allows us to get the feedback of the student in every discussion that we had. Sa summative approach naman, ito naman yung mga ginagawa after the discussion or after the reading period to assess then yung improvement ng mga bata. Time-efficient feedback, according to COL 2017, suggests or he or she suggests open questioning, descriptive feedback, and self-peer assessments can be easily incorporated into authentic assessment. So yun, naniniwala siya na ang effective way, more formative assessment is yung open questioning, descriptive feedback, and self and peers assessment. So para sa kanya, mas madaling na-incorporate yung mga learning in the use of socializing din sa mga bata or paghingi ng authentic feedback mula dun sa mga bata. So next, students will steadily improve their skills for making critical judgment or their own and their peers' work through first assessing the exemplars. So it allows reviewing examples of high quality work to understand standards and expectations. Next, reflecting on their learning and progress. So here naman, it allows students in engaging in self-assessment and metacognitive to identify areas of strength and weaknesses. So, third, receiving high-quality feedback on the quality of their own work and that of their peers. So, it obtain constructive and specific feedback on their own work and the work of their peers. Lastly, inclusion within the culture and expectations of the discipline. So it is an actively participating in the learning environment and understanding the specific requirements and norms of the subject area. So using this critical judgment, mas makukuha natin yung authentic feedback mula dun sa mga students. So, increase students' responsibility. It explains the concept that the quality of student work improves when students can effectively appraise their own work. So, to achieve this, Sadler 1989 argues that improvement to the quality of work will follow if students are able to appraise their own work as they do it. So, yun nga, the quality of students daw can improve kung na-appraise nila yung sarili nilang mga gawa nang sila yung gumagawa. So, to do so effectively, students need to skills to be able to recognize and value quality of work. So, here, students must be able to identify and appreciate, kumbaga yung appreciate nila kung ano yung mga constitutes ng high quality of work. So next, judge the quality of their work in progress against the exemplar. So here naman, students should be able to evaluate the ongoing quality of their work by comparing it to establish examples of excellence. So minsan, meron ding mga good purpose pag-compare ng gawa natin. Kumbaga, mas nakikita kasi nila doon kung ano pa yung dapat i-improve, ano yung saan sila slightly nagkulang, ganyan. So, kung sila mismo yung makakapag-judge ng sarili nilang gawa, mas malalaman nila kung paano nila yun may improve. So, maganda na nai-imply yun sa mga students to grow more. Lastly, to be able to change the tact and improvement the quality of their product. So, dito naman, students need the capacity to adjust their approach and enhance the quality of their product based on their self-appraisal. So, since na-judge nila yung sarili nilang mga gawa, mas nalalaman nila kung ano pa yung mga dapat nilang tawag dito, i-enhance, i-improve, diba? So, yun, maganda na itinuturo din natin yun sa mga students. For my last slide, support from learning at analytics. So, learning analytics can provide more detailed evidence of the strengths and weaknesses individual students have when the results are mapped to the learning outcomes and the assessment criteria of a course. Adams Becker 2018 note that the analysis of vast amount of data provide an unprecedented opportunity for colleges and universities to improve student outcomes. So, sa madaling salita, learning analytics provides support by offering detailed insights into students' performance and engagement. Also, ultimately aiming to improve student outcomes. Course-level academic pacing platforms that provide information about online and in-class engagement. At risk, students' assessment and facilitate the instructor-students feedback loop. Kumbaga, ito yung mga pacing platforms, kaya ng, yan, diba? Online class, So, ang risk lang, minsan naapektuhan yung engagement ng students natin kasi alam naman natin na kapag hindi natin sila masyadong nakaka-encounter or hindi natin alam kung ano yung environment na meron sila kapag nag-online class tayo, it may be destructive to them na makaka-apekto sa improvement nila sa klase. So, yun din, maliless din, I guess, yung way natin to facilitate students since hindi naman natin scope kung nasaan sila since online class lang yung nai-offer natin. So next, course level student, it's facing platforms that inform students about their engagement and learning. So dito naman, ito naman yung mga platforms that can help student engagement and learning. Siguro mga online platforms, tutorials na nakikita nila sa sa kung anong mga social media platforms na meron tayo ngayon or technology na pwede nilang gamitin na mas nakakatulong naman for their engagement.
So, on how to get started with authentic assessment. So, in designing authentic assessment, or to create authentic assessments, it consider incorporating authentic learning or experiential learning methods, which increase students' engagement. So, based on Golikars, Bastians, and Kirchner's 2004 5-dimensional framework provides a structure for designing authentic assessments by addressing the following questions. So for number 1, what do you have to do? So What task reflects professional practice? It designed a task that mirrors real-world scenarios and task professionals in the field perform. For number two, where do you have to do it? So, what is the physical context? So, it considers the environment and context in which the task would typically be performed. So, for number three, with whom do you have to do it? Okay, so what is the social context? So, incorporate social processes and interaction that mimic real life situation. So, for number four, what has to come out of it? So, what is the outcomes? It defines the expected result, such as a product or performance, demonstration of competences, multiple indicators of learning, oral and or written presentations. For number five, how will what you have done have be evaluated or judged? How will it be evaluated? So establish clear criteria and standards for assessment, ensuring transparency and consistency. And for the last part of our reporting, in implementing authentic assessment, we can encounter challenges. It can be time consuming to organize and manage experiences, labor intensive to develop a well defined criterion reference marking scheme, and requires careful considerations to ensure reliability and validity in measuring students' achievements. So, by understanding these challenges and using the five-dimensional framework, educators can design effective authentic assessments that prepare students for real-world applications.